Very cool. Excited to welcome my next guest to the podcast, Notre Dame goalie Liam Entenmann. Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I typically ask goalies if they remember the story of the very first time they jumped into goal. Do you remember way back when?
Yes, I do. So I don't remember the exact year. It was definitely, I'd say, early on in my lacrosse career. I didn't play any other position besides goalie. We rotated around when you're younger, and I played some midfield and attack and defense, I'm sure. But once it came time to really kind of settle into one position, I never played anything other than goalie. So I do kind of remember my first time stepping in the goal. It was kind of the typical story. Nobody wanted to step in, and I guess maybe the goalie didn't show up, and I decided I was going to give it a shot. And my first shot, I always tell people my first shot hit my ankle. I think it was a save. I don't really remember, but I do remember my first shot made me cry. So come a long way from then for sure. And for whatever reason, I just, stuck with it, and, really happy that I did. Really love playing it.
Yeah, my very first shot, or my very first save, very first shot I saw hit me square in the face mask on a man down, and I had only been playing goalie for like a couple weeks because I switched from midi, and I was hooked. Because there's nothing. I'm sure you can agree with this. There's nothing better than that feeling of making a save, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just definitely a great feeling to be able to feel like you help your team out, and that's what I've always felt is the best part. Like, obviously, especially this year, I had a great defense in front of me, and they've certainly bailed me out plenty of times. But once in a while, there's a time where things didn't go according to plan, and if I was able to make a save to help them out and kind of return the favor to them, it was always a great feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the beauty of this position is like, you can control a game if you're on, and that's what I love about it. So you're growing up on Long Island, hotbed of lacrosse. How did you go about, once you realized, hey, this goalie position's pretty cool? Like, how'd you go about, learning how to make saves?
I mean, I always attribute a lot of, I guess, my success, if you want to call it. I don't know if that's the right word, but I guess just my journey in general to Zach Oliveri and Chris Selva. Those two guys were two goalie coaches that I had for, I'd say, a better part of 5 years when you put them together. And Chris Selva started off when I was really young. I'd say, I don't know exactly when, probably fifth, sixth grade, just shooting on me and really started to develop my stance. And I think I can really attribute my wide stance to him because I think that's how they kind of coach it at Hofstra. I think at Hofstra they have kind of a unique setup where they have one kind of uniform stance. Now, obviously, it varies guy to guy, but I think that's kind of how he developed the wide stance, and then he brought that on to me. And I think it's I've been happy with it, and I feel like that's how it suits me well, being a tall, kind of skinny guy. And then from there, after Chris moved down to Texas to start his own club program, and then I met Zach Oliveri, and he's been very influential with me and still texts me a lot about the mental game. And I think once you get to the level, the collegiate level, it's very important to have a very very strong mental game because you're playing very good and very fast shooters, and you can't let 1, 2, 3 goals in a row really get to you. So I really attribute a lot of my career to those two guys.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the mental game quite a little bit later on. Zach presented in the very first goalie summit that I did and crushed it, man. That guy's awesome.
He's great.
Yeah. Great dude. Great dude. Cool. So you mentioned that wide base stance and, I don't know if I know other Hofstra goalies, but Jack Kincannon went through Hofstra and he definitely is a wide base guy, bigger goalie. I think anybody that's got some size should definitely give that stance a go, right? Just try it out, see how it feels for them. What do you like about it? Like what's your favorite thing about being in that particular wide base setup?
Well, what I've found is that unless the shot is coming or the shooter is like dead center in front of me, I've found that with very few exceptions, I don't have to reach outside of my legs in order to make a save, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a sense of security. I don't have to, dive for the ball or take a huge step because I have kind of long limbs enough, I guess, or long enough limbs, I should say,
Yeah.
that I can kind of reach there and get to it and not take a huge step. So I like it in that sense. I also like, I'm 6'3", probably with spikes on, maybe even 6'4". So if I stand completely upright, a big part of my helmet and in my head is above. Oh, sorry, getting a call. goal. Big part of my helmet is, above the cage.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I, get in that crouch position, I can kind of get the best of both worlds, where if it's a shot high, I can just explode up. And then if it's a low shot, I can kind of just drop down my knees or just kind of throw my hands down there. So that I found that it's not, you know, I don't have to move too far for anything, if that makes sense.
It does. That's what I like about it. That's kind of what I see as the advantage. Is like if you're set up nice and wide, especially if you're on the 45 in your arc, like they don't, you're covering the entire frame of the goal, leg to leg. So if it's outside of your frame, it's probably going to miss the goal. One negative thing is it does open up a lot of the 5-hole. And I'm curious, do you spend a lot of time kind of practicing those shots?
I never really did it specifically. Actually, the last at the USA camp a few weeks ago, Coach Myers worked with me a lot on that, because we had some positional stuff, and he did some drills with me for that, and I really liked them. It was just kind of getting your hands there and kind of catching it before it gets to the ground. But I found, I guess, the best way for me to combat that, because I feel like there's no such thing as a perfect stance, in my opinion. And I guess with the wide base, naturally, it's not like I'm giving away a secret. It's 5 holes kind of open.
Mm-hmm.
I found that just dropping to my knees helped me a lot, as far as getting to those low shots, and specifically 5-hole. It's definitely unconventional. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are against people that
Drop down to the knees.
So it's sometimes you have to have a discussion about that, but I found that it's helped me out a lot, and it, like I was saying, just kind of helps me get to those 5-hole shots. But
Yeah,
definitely continuously work on.
Yeah, there's definitely two schools of thought. And I know, I typically coach youth to stay on their feet for low saves, but I know a lot of goalie coaches who teach drop to their knees. I know a lot of goalies who have tremendous success doing that. So let's say you're in your stance, you're in your wide base, and one shot, off stick low. I mean, you're basically getting your left inner thigh kind of down there in addition to your hands, right? I mean, that's kind of your save movement.
Yes, I'd say so. I mean, especially with low shots, I kind of just sometimes, especially with the speed of the shooters that are at the guys that I played this year, you kind of got to sometimes throw fundamentals out the window and just throw yourself at it. So I feel like I did that a few times this year, and sometimes it resulted in a few bruises on the leg, or if I didn't get my stick there, but it's all worth it to make a save. But yeah, I try to lead with my hands, but also use the body part behind my hands, wherever the shot is kind of my fail safe, in order to get the save if my hands don't get there.
Yeah. I posted today on my Instagram a story of a bruise, a goalie getting a bruise. And like every time I do that, people just send me like their bruises, like unsolicited, just some of the most gnarliest bruises that I've seen. I'm curious if you had like does one bruise come to mind, or one like shot that you took, or series of shots where it's just like,
there's one that comes to mind. It kind of makes me laugh about it, because it was just such a crazy turn of events for me. Wasn't a bruise per se, but it was before my senior year St. Anthony's game when I was at Chaminade. I got hit in the cup by Chris Kavanaugh, who I'm actually playing with next year, and I'm really good buddies with his brother Pat. He hit me, and it was such a bad shot that I almost didn't play. And within 10 minutes, I was able to just say I'm playing. This is a game I've been waiting for my whole life. So I decided to play, and it ended up being a really big win for us, and it was one of the better memories of my I guess of my career in general, because that's a game, that's a rivalry growing up on Long Island and always wanting to go to Chaminade, that I've watched guys like John Connors, Danny Fowler, Matt Isnardi, and then and also I guess Jack Zulo, who I actually ended up playing with at Notre Dame. Watching those guys and being able to be in the shoes of guys that I grew up watching was really cool. So I knew I wasn't, for a few minutes I was like, wow, this is really painful. I don't know if I can play, but eventually I was like, I gotta grin and bear it.
Yeah, that's funny. So a nut shot, a cup shot almost took you out, man. Almost ended your career.
Yeah.
Have you since upgraded cups? Or are you doing like the ice? Like, what do you go with? You go with the ice
I
hockey
go with
setup?
big big hockey cup. It's nicknamed the belt on our team. Or I guess in my class more so. So yeah, I've been sticking with it for a while. I've been using it for a few years, and I'm kind of going to roll with it. I mean, there's obviously the occasional shot where it's like this is very painful, but usually, yeah, I've been pretty happy with it.
Yeah. Now, do you talking about like sticking with the topic of padding? When you first jumped into goal, was there any padding, or was it just straight up?
No, I looked like the Michelin Man for a few years. I had padding everywhere you can think of. I had elbow pads, shin pads, thigh pads. I use those actually kind of, I feel like there's a certain point for most goalies, they kind of took the training wheels off, if you want to
Mhm.
call it that. But I kind of left the thigh pads on for a while. I didn't like getting hit in the thigh. Um, I'd say around like seventh grade is when I was kind of late relative to other goalies when they started to kind of just have the usual setup of basically nothing besides the chest protector, helmet, gloves, and cup and cleats,
Mhm.
obviously. But yeah, I'd
That's
say
good
that
to
was
hear. I mean, it's good to hear. Like, I feel like a lot of youth goalies shy away from the padding, and it's a shame because like you get hit in the thigh, and you just like kind of like your cup story. You're like, I don't want to be here anymore, and it's totally avoidable if you just put on some thigh pads, some shin guards. And then,
yeah.
like you said, when you get older, if you want to strip all that off, or come game time when the adrenaline's going, yeah, strip it off. But I think as a youth, like definitely pad up.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, sometimes people, give goalies, younger guys a hard time, like, oh, why are you wearing so much padding, or that guy over there isn't. And that happened with me a good amount of times, and
Yeah.
kind of messed with me a little bit when I was younger. I was like, oh, maybe I should. And then looking back at it, I mean, I should have just said, why don't you step in the goal and you give it a shot, So
Right.
I'm sure they'd be wearing more padding than I was at the time. So I definitely, if there's anyone who thinks that it's wearing pads isn't cool. I mean, what I always try to say is like, and people give me a hard time about the sweatpants too because it looks kind of dorky, but it, if it helps you make the save, it's say results speak kind of, so
Yeah.
whatever helps you, if more padding helps you take that step or take that lunge towards a save, it's go for it.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, I was a big sweatpants guy too. And you roll up the bottoms to get that good look. It makes you feel good, right?
Yeah, definitely, especially as a tall guy. I feel like I got such long legs that wearing shorts kind of makes me feel like I don't
Yeah.
know, feel a little exposed.
Awesome. What about like early weak points of your game? Like, were you scared of the ball? Was there something that you were really struggling with?
um I would say honestly, which I feel like for most guys it's reversed. When they're younger they love playing, and when they're older they kind of get burnt out. And I was
Mm,
kind of the opposite. I really didn't love playing when I was younger. I certainly didn't love training, and I feel like I kind of had to, get thrown onto the field and to train. But as I got older, it kind of was the other way around. I could feel like compared to other people, I started to really embrace training, and it became kind of a passion of mine. It's just
mm.
I guess I shouldn't say passion, but a hobby of mine more so to just really try to become the best goalie that I can. So I'd say early on I'd say lack of passion would be a weakness. Um, afraid. I mean, I guess maybe when I was younger, a bit of a fear of the ball. Not gonna, I think everyone has a certain stage in their career where it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get hit. But
Yeah.
I was able to overcome that as I got older, and I think that's how it is for most people. Once you get used to I really can't think of a spot on my body where I haven't gotten hit yet, so you kind of get used to it. So
Yep.
yeah, I'd say those two for the most part.
Cool. So in terms of like, falling in love with the training, like what does that mean for you? What would some of your training sessions look like? Is that just a bunch of live shots? Is that wall ball? Is that something else? Like what was the training like for you?
So when I can't so I always prefer to get shot on. I feel like that's one of the best ways to train. Now that's me personally. There's
Yeah.
people that I know that never see shots in the off season, and that's completely fine. And for me personally, I feel like the best way to train to make a save is to make saves, if that makes sense. So I saw a lot of shots. I actually saw, I'd say close to 2,000 shots in the span of like 3 weeks during winter break. My buddy has a indoor like gym / turf area
Yeah.
in Garden City. So we went there a lot, and so I saw a lot of shots there. So I feel like that kind of helped me get ready for the season. And then if I'm training by myself, I try to keep it very simple. I mean, there's a lot of a lot of drills and um, that are out there, but I actually come to think of it, I actually when I was starting to base my to create my training session, I actually looked up like lacrosse goalie drills, and the first website that came up was yours, and I actually kind of yeah, I kind of went from there, and I keep it very simple though. I've always been kind of simple. I don't try to make these crazy drills, but if I had to, if I had to walk through my typical like hour and a half routine, if I'm training by myself, it would be just find a wall somewhere, find, ideally if there's a wall and then turf nearby, that's, that'd be a home run. There's a park about 15 minutes from where I live, that has a handball court. So I do the throwing and stuff there. And then there's a turf or two turf fields about, a few 100 feet away. So that's kind of what I've been using recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I usually just warm up, throw the ball around a little bit, nothing crazy, kind of just mess around and get the muscles warm, especially when it's, cold on Long Island in the winters. And then I usually just do some ladders, icky shuffles, side shuffle. I started using the bands around my ankles to kind of make it tougher. And then one drill that I don't know if I can take credit for creating it, because I doubt that I did that, but it's a variant of the walk the line where I do it in the ladder to make sure that I have perfect footwork. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you overstep, then you end up outside the ladder, and if you understep, then you drag the ladder with you. So I've been doing that, and I do that with the kids that I coach for a really long time now, and I found it's been very beneficial because it guarantees perfect footwork, and you can't be it. When you mess up, it's not like it's not like, oh, I wonder if I did the drill right. It's you messed up, so
Right.
do that. And then I actually have a reaction ball. I don't know if that it has like bumps on them, and
Right.
usually drop it off the ground or throw it off the wall using goalie stick or a shorty. Um, Tennis ball work, and then usually end up with doing some form of the dock drill where you just chuck it off the wall, catch it until the point where you literally, can't throw it anymore. And then do that for a while and do different variants of that, obviously, with, sometimes with the shorty, sometimes with a goalie stick, sometimes with the reaction ball. So kind of mix that up a little bit. And then towards the end, I just do 100, 200 righty. And I know obviously with field players, if you want to call them that, there's always the saying, do twice as much offhand as you do with your dominant hand, but there's not as many opportunities to throw the ball with your offhand as a goalie. So
Right.
I definitely train the other hand, but I usually do about two 200 righty and then 100 lefty, and then like kind of a variance of behind the back and some stuff like that. So because you never know when you're going to need it. So
Cool.
it's usually what it is. And then I usually, if it's a nice day out, just go for a little run afterwards or some sprints. So
There you go. There you go. D1 All-American workout right there. People ask me all the time for workout. I might make a little post on that. Anything you just said right there.
yeah,
D1 athletes workout. I love it. You mentioned Chris Silva. You mentioned Zach. Any other, when you think about goalies as you're kind of growing up and learning the sport, like any other goalies that you really like to watch, or even to this day, I guess, for that matter.
yeah. I mean, there's honestly too many to name. I mean,
Mhm.
I've always been a big fan of the position, or I guess when I was started to really um, train for it, really started to watch a lot of just YouTube clips of people, and some of the save montages that you make are actually a lot of those. Um, there's really too many to name. I mean, I can go back as far as Pierce Bassett. I really liked, because he was similar height weight as I was, or at least I was projected to be, because I wasn't obviously the same size as him when I was 12. Scott Rogers, John Kemp, Nico Amato, and then as I kind of got into the high school stage, or I guess you want to call it that, I liked Burnlore a lot.
Hmm.
Concannon, Jack Kelly, Shane Doss. Especially once I started talking to Notre Dame, I really watched a lot of Notre Dame games, so I watched Shane Doss a good amount. Um, yeah, I mean, it's really a lot. I really tried to. What I try to do is take different parts, even to this day. If there's something I see from a certain goalie, whether it be pro or whoever, if I see something about their play that I like, I'll try to incorporate it into my play. The one mistake I made when I was younger though is I would get so in my head. Say for example, I would watch uh, a save compilation of Kyle Burnlor, for example, and I'm like, wow, like he's great, and I would try to exactly replicate how he plays.
Hmm.
And it kind of, for a few months, it was just like, it kind of became ridiculous. Like every time I would watch somebody play, I would just exactly try to replicate how they played, but then I realized after a while, you know, I am I can't, be replicating everybody, because that just leads to inconsistency in play, inconsistency in style.
Yeah.
So I tried to kind of take everything or take the parts I like from certain goalies, and kind of bring it together and kind of leave out the parts that didn't work for me. And that's how I kind of created this stance that I kind of go with now.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's smart advice. You watch someone like Blaze, and I don't know anyone else who can play like Blaze. You got to have like like this amazing amount of athleticism and size, and it's very unique. But there are little elements of his game where I'm like, ooh, that what he just did right there on that type of shot, I can use. Like I
Yeah,
can incorporate that into my style. So yeah, I mean, study up, find what works for you, and then, like you said, don't try to replicate someone. You're not someone else. Like be yourself, but you can steal parts of their game.
exactly. Yeah, you can't directly replicate anybody. You're not the same height, weight, age, body type, whatever, as the next guy. So definitely just make your own style.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Well, awesome. And so Chaminade's I mean, huge lacrosse school. Yeah. And I imagine, very competitive. And how did it go for you? Did you start right away? How was your career there?
I definitely didn't start right away. That's kind of the tradition at Chaminade. I can't think of anybody outside of John Connors. I think was the only 3-year starter that I know of. Danny Fowler, I think, was a 2-year as well. Uh, but um, yeah, it's very rare to be more than 2-year starter, and it's
Mm.
kind of the norm to be a 1-year starter. I only started 1 year on varsity. I began my career on JVB, and then JVA, and then was the backup my junior year. I was the second string on varsity to Andrew Bonafide, who's at Duke now, and then he went to Duke, and then senior year I kind of stepped in. So it was definitely about waiting your turn, and I knew that going in. It wasn't like I was caught off guard by that. I knew who was ahead of me, and that's kind of the culture there. I mean, it's very rare. It's becoming more common now, but it's very, very rare to get pulled up as an underclassman. I don't think Matt Kavanaugh did, or Pat Kavanaugh didn't either. It's very uncommon there. So,
Hmm.
but I also think it really taught me some valuable lessons. A lot of the guys that I was playing with on my club team were, the leading points guy on their team, or the other goalie on my express team, Colton. He started, I think, 4 years on varsity, or 3 years on varsity. So it was kind of unique to see those guys that were putting up points on, I guess the biggest stage at that point that we could have played on, which was the varsity level on Long Island. And, me and some of the other Chaminade guys were still waiting our turn. But once we got our turn, we kind of made the most of it. And so I think that taught me a very valuable lesson, is just waiting your turn. And, I didn't know what to expect as far as playing time comes when I got to Notre Dame. It wasn't like by no means was I like guaranteed that spot from the beginning. And I think it's a very important lesson you can learn from coming from Long Island, which is, kind of a powerhouse where you oftentimes have to wait your turn. Is you're not going to be handed anything in college as far as playing time goes. And if you don't, it doesn't matter what your ranking is in high school, and you know, what events you went to. If you don't perform in practice and scrimmages, and especially in preseason, then you're not going to get that spot. So I learned that through Chaminade, and I learned that through coming up through the pipeline on Long Island. So very,
Yeah.
very thankful for those lessons that I learned.
Yeah, important lesson, because there's, at the end of the day, there's only one goalie. There's very few spots for us goalies. It's not like you're running three lines of middies, and everyone gets a look. But yeah, I mean, you got to be ready. You got to work hard. And so, like, if you get that opportunity, if heaven forbid, the number one goalie gets injured, or it is you're the senior, like, and it's your chance, like, that's what you're working for. And it just raises the level of the team if you're into it. You're the backup, who's pushing everyone.
Yeah.
Um, Interesting though. So you didn't start until your senior year. How did that work with your recruiting process? Did you pretty much rely on, kind of your club experience?
Um, I would say, it was mostly club teams and different events. I didn't get a lot of exposure playing at the freshman level as far as college coaches go. I mean, it was
Mhm.
still great experience, but as far as college coaches go, there wasn't really a lot. They were going to the JVB game on Tuesday afternoons.
Right.
So
Looking for those diamonds in the rough.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would say it was more so club events, showcases, but it wasn't like if I was talking to a coach, it wasn't like, oh, you're not the starter on varsity as a younger guy. What's up with that? Because I think most coaches know what Chaminade it's all about, and they know that it's a lot about waiting your turn. So it was never like a red flag with me as far as I know with anybody. I would imagine.
Gotcha. Um, so how did Notre Dame come into the picture? Was that always kind of a lifelong dream, or was that, when you start looking at schools, and, how did you first consider Notre Dame, and what was your recruiting process like?
So I had a very unusual recruiting process, and I think sometimes people see me playing now and probably just assume that it was a straight Notre Dame called the first day of my freshman year, and it was could not be further from the truth. I mean, it was a very hard process for me. I was cut from some club teams going into the uh, you know important years of recruiting. And it wasn't always an easy road for me. I wasn't invited to the big showcases when I was uh, younger, so I was very fortunate that Notre Dame was able to see me. I was invited to the Philly showcase my sophomore year, and I had one of the better games of my athletic career, I would say. And I was thinking to myself, like, damn, there's no coaches here. Like, I have a breakout game and there's no one there to see the breakout. And I actually saw a guy up on a hill and it was like sunny. So I was like, I wasn't sure who it was. And actually, I was like, maybe it looks like Coach Corrigan, but I'm not sure. And it turns out that it was. I found that out a few weeks later. And then the next day, I had a really good game, really good tournament on Long Island, and Coach Byrne was there. So I think if I had to guess what happens, they kind of came together after that weekend and decided to, try to, recruit me, I guess. And I visited a few months later, January of my sophomore year. This is before the rules changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I visited January of my sophomore year, which I know sounds crazy, but at the time it was like it felt really late, because a lot of the other goalies that I was playing against in the club circuit were committed at that point. So and I committed 2 days later. It could not have been a better visit. It was everything I could have asked for in a visit and a college and just an overall visit experience. So, and I'm really happy that I made that decision.
Yeah, awesome. Well, congrats on that. What advice do you have for someone who is in your situation where, like, they're going to these showcases and they're like, this is one of my only opportunities to prove myself, and so, like, it's this huge amount of pressure,
Yeah.
right? And, like, what advice do you have for goalies to play well in that scenario?
It's very tough, and I'm not going to even try to say like, oh, just pretend they're not there, because the bottom line is that you see these coaches on TV and you see the teams they're coaching, and you want to play for those teams. So it's very hard to just channel them out completely and say, oh, they're not there. They obviously are. I would just say I've always been a big believer in just kind of trusting the process. And one thing that I always say to myself is whenever I, maybe have a rough game or have, a few rough shots in a row is, and without getting, I'm not trying to get too, philosophical here, but every single shot, every single game that I've played has led me to right now where I am. And I go back to the Philly Showcase game where it was kind of like one of those highlight moments. Like I had a triple save, like on the floor, made, three kind of crazy saves. And that situation would not have happened if I hadn't gotten scored on the shot before that. Because what had happened was I would have made the save, average save, cleared it. And that next situation that kind of, I guess, put me on Coach Cargan's radar for the first time, that would never have happened. And maybe I wouldn't have ever committed to Notre Dame. So I would say just really kind of trust the process and realize that the person and the player that you are is, I'm not saying define yourself based off of, the shots you see in Showcase, but every single shot you've seen, every single bad game, good game, amazing game, horrible game has led you to where you are now. So just keep trusting the process and never give up.
It's great advice. That's really great advice. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. And like in trusting the process, like maybe you have your eye set on this school, right? But maybe it's maybe it's not even the right. Maybe it wouldn't have been the right school for you. You're just in love with this idea of going to a Notre Dame or going to a Michigan or something like that, right? And maybe this other school over here that you end up getting into, that you're on the process for, ends up being a great fit. You have an amazing experience. You get playing time, right? So yeah, just trust the process and like approach it knowing that whatever happens at the end is going to be the right thing for you. I think is a great way to think about it.
Agree.
Yeah. Awesome. So did you even look at any other schools, or was it pretty much Notre Dame right away?
I had some interest from some schools before Notre Dame, and it was either I felt like it wasn't the right fit for me, or they kind of lost interest in me. So at the time that I ended up committing to Notre Dame, I didn't have, I wasn't one of those kids that had, 8 back-to-back visits scheduled. There's some guys I hear about that are like, oh yeah, he's visiting Duke this weekend, Virginia next weekend, Notre Dame weekends. Like, I didn't have any of that. And Notre Dame was to my knowledge, the only ACC school that, or for that matter, ACC, Big Ten, or Ivy League school that offered me. I might be wrong about that, but I think that was the only, one of those 3 conferences that made me an offer. So it wasn't, I guess the lesson that I can give to somebody who's like listening to this is like, you don't have to be some blue chip recruit on every single guy's radar as a 17-year-old in order to end up at a, a good place. Because I feel like I'm a great example of that. And so yes, at the time I committed, that was pretty much the only school that I was talking to.
Awesome. You mentioned the other programs not being a good fit for you. What does that mean? What should a young goalie be who's going through this recruiting process be thinking about in terms of finding the right fit?
I mean, it's kind of a cliche saying, but would you be happy if you got hurt and couldn't play anymore? Because lacrosse does take up a lot of your time, obviously. And in my case, and I would imagine the cases of pretty much every guy that's playing lacrosse, and especially D1 lacrosse, is, your social circle is your team. But, you're going to classes by yourself, you're eating lunch by yourself, you're sometimes going out on the weekends by yourself. So it's, it's a lot about your team, but not entirely. So you just got to make sure that you're happy as an individual and that the culture and the academics and the athletics is all combined, a good fit for you, because it's, 4 years of your life.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So you get to Notre Dame, and I guess what 2020 was your freshman year?
Yes. So 2020 season, I started there the fall of 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. And you earned the starting job right away. I'm curious, like, what was it like for you showing up as a freshman? It's always interesting dynamic, because as goalies, like, we need to be leaders of the team. Like, the best teams that I know have goalies who are leaders, and yet, when you're so young, you kind of don't know the ropes. So how did you go about, being a leader of those guys?
Yeah. So it was definitely kind of an interesting experience for me because I wanted to come in immediately and show, the coaches and I guess show my teammates more so what I'm about. But I also didn't want to be some assertive guy that's acting like he's, the captain of the team in the first day of practice. So I had to excuse me, had to find the balance between that. And it was kind of hard, I didn't want to be too aggressive or too assertive, but I also didn't want to be the guy sitting in the back of the room and kind of being passive.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to, go through a bit of a trial and error with that and kind of settle down eventually and just be yourself. That's the most important thing is just being yourself. And I feel like I was able to, do that. And I was, happy with my fall and had a good preseason and, the coaches decided to play me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, what was that feeling like when you got the news that you're going to be starting your freshman year?
I mean, it was definitely surreal for me, to be honest. I wasn't at the time when Coach Cargan told me that I tried to act, really calm and like, just say thank you and just went on with practice. But it was very surreal for me because I guess kind of the journey I kind of just walked you through, it was very hard. And it was not, all sunshines and rainbows. It was a lot of, tough go with it.
Hmm.
And, not always being the guy that's being invited to showcases and being invited to, certain teams. I was, up until my senior year of high school, I was never ranked and, rankings, I mean, it's cool. I'm not going to lie. I mean, you're a freshman in high school and if you're ranked, it's an exciting thing. And as you get older, it kind of becomes, you know, you just want to focus on playing more so, but especially once you get to the college level. But when you're a freshman or sophomore in high school, it's a nice thing to be able to kind of hang your hat on. And I was, unfortunately never able to do that. But at the same time, I think it kind of fueled me and made me be never, complacent. So anyways, never had any rankings, wasn't, the it guy on in high school or on my, my club team. So to be able to, go from that and be on, have a kind of a long winding road to where I got it was very surreal. And yeah, so it was definitely a special moment for me.
Yeah, awesome. It's one of the themes I've noticed on this podcast, but also just with athletes in general is, having that chip on the shoulder of like getting cut from a team or not being ranked or, basically at some point in your life, someone telling you you can't do it is such a strong driving force that a lot of athletes who go through that, it really lifts them up. And I think most elite goalies have some sort of story about, saying like, I was overlooked, right? And it sounds like that's the same scenario with you. That really drove you to become the goalie that you are today.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Definitely.
Yeah.
It was not always easy, but I also think that kind of made me who I am. And to this day, I never. I think part of the reason why I've been able to, had a I guess a good season this year was I never got complacent,
Mm.
and I knew that because of personal experience that your job is never guaranteed.
Yeah.
And I had, there's some very good goalies on my team, and it was a constant competition every day. And um, you know, so there's nothing ever guaranteed. So I feel like that, the chip on my shoulder combined with the experience of being cut and being kind of removed kind of is helped me to never say, oh, I got this. I, just go on kind of airplane mode and just stop trying or stop training because it's never yours.
Yeah. When you got to Notre Dame, did your goalie style change at all?
I'd say a little bit. We had my freshman year, Kevin Anderson was our goalie coach. He was, unfortunately not able to coach us this year because of, some, COVID, I think might have limited the coaches or something like that. I'm not really sure, but he was unable to coach us this year, but he was very helpful with me last year. And more so with on the mental game. I mean, he changed a few things around and I was kind of flopping to the point where it was too much. He was not
Mm-hmm.
against flopping or dropping to my knees for shots in general, but it was, I was kind of biting low a few times and I dropped down and it would go high. And if I had stood still, I would have saved it. So he changed that a little bit. Um, But I wouldn't say it changed too much. I think generally speaking, if you look at pictures for me for my senior year, or more so my junior year to my senior year of high school, and then my freshman year of college, it's not. I wouldn't really say there's like a marked difference in how I play. It's wide stance, hands kind of not dead forward, but or dead straight, but kind of to the side
Mm-hmm.
to give me some flexibility and looseness, and maybe the sweatpants. I didn't wear sweatpants all of high school, but
There we go. There
that'd
we
be the
go.
only. I did it my senior year, but my junior year I wasn't crazy on the sweatpants.
the, Added in the sweatpants. Do you it looked like you were always wearing like the same undershirt. Is that a thing or no? You kind of switch
Yeah,
it up.
it's just a crazy superstition. I have a lot of those, and I'm not gonna I'm not even gonna get into it, but yeah, I got made fun of a lot for my look. I kind of came up with the phrase the anti-swag because I just looks like such a clown that I had to kind of go with it. So it was, a gray shirt, and everyone else was wearing the blue shirt. And I don't want to try to sound like, oh, like I'm too cool to, wear what everyone else is wearing. It wasn't that at all. It was just my weird goalie superstition to wear the gray undershirt. And then I wore the same gray sweats for every game. Kind of got hot towards the end of the playoffs, but I stuck with it. And sometimes wore blue socks if I was feeling it.
Yeah.
So definitely an interesting getup for sure. And got a lot of remarks from opposing sidelines in my sweatpants, but it's all good.
All good. All good.
Yeah,
You gonna stick with that look next year?
I think so.
All
I feel
right.
like I just gotta rock with it at this point.
Yeah, you got to go with it. It's the anti-swag swag.
Yeah,
So little amount of swag that it's swaggy.
exactly.
Oh man, do you put a revolution of tape to keep the sweatpants up?
No, I just kind of rolled them up. They had I don't know what to call it, but kind of tight at the bottom, so I was able to pull them up and they wouldn't really roll down. I had to roll them up a little bit, but I didn't like tape them at
Tape
all.
'em. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned the superstitions. We got to talk about the superstitions. This is the Lacrosse Goalie podcast. What else? What's your pregame routine like?
It's like sometimes it's kind of crazy how superstitious I get. First off, it starts to having a good night's sleep. That it begins the night before, and I can tell you for sure that I felt more confident going into games that I had like 9+ hours sleep the night before versus not. And actually, the night before the first Duke game, the one that we played at home and we were able to win that one, the kids in the dorm room below me were blasting music till 1 a.m. like it was a nightclub. And I got 5.5 hours of sleep or something like that. And I remember going into that Duke game like, yikes, I'm a little tired. So first thing is get a good night's sleep. That's always been a big thing for me. And then I would say just have a good breakfast. I didn't really eat a lot before games. Sometimes the coaches would be asking like, why are you like not eating food? We have a pregame meal, and I would just get a few eggs, some breakfast potatoes, nothing too crazy because I didn't want it to have like a heavy stomach. So I'd say that. I mean, I don't know if these are superstitions. It's more so just my pregame routine.
Yeah.
Throw the sweats on, throw the eye black on, and then before games, I would always juggle, and I did the same amount of reps of the juggle every single time. So what I would do is 100, just like regular juggles, like with the three balls, and then I would drop that, and then I would do 22 of these where you just drop and catch them.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that at Breakout Goaltending, so quick shout out to them. They taught me that at a very young age, and I have been doing it for 10 years plus. I would do 22 of those like walking, and then 22 just still to add up to 44. Extremely cheesy, I know, but I kind of just I did it and then stuck with it. So and then pipe ritual.
And that's your number too, right? 44.
Yes, that's why I did it. I know it's extremely lame, but that's just the goalie thing. And then pipe ritual, I always grab a top pipe and then hit the side. So and then it's go time.
Boom. Love it. Coach Tim from Breakout Goaltending presented at the last Goalie Summit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He did an awesome presentation. What about when you give up a goal? Do you have a specific routine that you go through when that happens?
No, not really. It's not, I see Ryan LaPlante. I remember distinctly would always like slam the pipes after every goal he gave up. I never did that. Um, I wouldn't say anything specific.
Okay.
I kind of just tried to, and I know another, cliche goalie term is the next shot mentality. And
Yeah.
that is, trust me, from experience, much easier said than done. But you really have to have it at this level. I think sometimes people look at the golden, 50% save percentage or 55% save percentage or whatever it may be, and think it's like every other shot's a save and every other shot's a goal. But sometimes you go 5 saves in a row and you go 5 goals in a row. And you got to have that mentality of, okay, you just got to reset every single time. And, honestly, even up to this year, I kind of struggled with that in the beginning. Because I had the first few games, I had, a lot of success against the teams that we played that were out of conference. And then first game of the ACC season was Virginia, and I was like 38%. And I was, it wasn't a bad game. They're very good shooters. And um, well, I would not call it a bad game by any means, but it wasn't what I was used to the first 4 games of the season. And it was visible how bad my body language was.
Mm.
And I kind of had to reset and go into the Syracuse game and be a completely different guy mentally. And Syracuse game, the first half, I actually probably my worst single half of the entire season. I was like 2 for 9 or something really, really rough. And everyone was like looking at me at halftime, I think, like, how am I going to react? And I just stayed very poised and really unfazed by it. And I truly was. It wasn't like I was putting on a fake persona. I was really just like, okay, just got to reset, and it's a new half, and was able to really bounce back in the second half and of that first Syracuse game, and then kind of I feel like that kind of put me on the right track the rest of the season, mentally, and I guess in my play as well.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite game from this season?
I'd say the second Syracuse game was really cool. I mean, the first Drexel game was not the first round of the season of the playoffs against Drexel was really cool, but also very stressful because it got down to the wire, and
Yeah.
our season end. I would say the Syracuse game for a variety of reasons. I feel like, as a defense, it was a really good game. We only held them to, I think it was 6 or 8 goals. I think it was 8 goals, but none in the second half,
Wow.
or something along those lines. And that was our senior day. That was our, we played the quarterfinals on our Lotta, but we didn't, we weren't certain if that was going to be the case. And, there's who knows what's going to happen with the bracket, but we knew that this was the last regular season home game on our Lotta for our seniors and also for our fifth years. And that's like 19 guys this year.
Wow.
So it was really cool. We had a really big win. I think we had like 22 goals on them or something like that. And they only had 6 or 8 or so on us. And we were able to get, I think, every senior onto the field, which was really special to be able to do that. Nice little send off for them, and all the families were there. So I'd say that was my favorite game of the year. It's kind of like one of those feel good games, just
Yeah.
everything was hitting, everything was coming together. And we got our seniors who have been awesome, and our fifth years as well, who all, either transferred in or came back for another year onto the field. So that was, I'd say, the most special.
Awesome. Sounds great. I watched that Drexel game, and that was a great game. I mean, I'm sure a little stressful for you and Notre Dame fans, but I mean, especially for the goalie play. I made a save edit, and I mean, I forget how. I mean, there was like well over 30 saves between the two of you guys. So it was great goalie play. Awesome game.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, could you take us through, like, at a pretty high level, like what a week would look like, for a D1 athlete at Notre Dame?
Just like our day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, day to day.
Okay, so Saturday you have a game usually. Sunday is like kind of a rest and recovery day. I usually, go to the facility, just kind of, or maybe not the training facility, but, go to the locker room, grab the, the Theragun, and just kind of roll out. Monday is usually a light practice. Nothing too crazy. We'd kind of slowly walk through the next opponent's game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are pretty intense. As the season progressed, it kind of got, not as intense because the load on our bodies was, getting, starting to add up, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Friday was, but still, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was kind of, go time. And that's when we really got ready for the games. And then Friday, we kind of walked through things and made sure that everyone was, healthy, ready to go for the weekend. So it was, and then Saturday's, another game day.
Another
So
game.
obviously varied here and there. There were a few times where we played, Marquette on a Wednesday and then had a quick turnaround for Cleveland State. We had an away trip to Duke, and then we played Duke on a Thursday and then UNC on a Sunday. So that obviously looked way different than the typical week. And then, I think different variations by team or, by week, I guess, but that's typically what it would look like. 3 days of real intense training, one off day on that Sunday, and then 2 days that we kind of walked through things and made sure everyone was staying healthy.
Cool. And then during those like days of intense training, those practices, do you guys get like specific goalie time, or are you just kind of mixing it up and getting reps in the drills?
Yeah. So Coach Wojcik, he was our kind of our goalie coach this year, and he spent a lot of time with us, and he was really great. We had film sessions with him, either weekly or bi-weekly, depending on what our availability was. So he would work with us for about 15, 20 minutes every day. Typically, there's obviously exceptions to that, but typically we did some shooting drills, clearing drills, and then if he had to go work with the offense, because he's also our offensive coach, then we would do kind of self-sufficient stuff, just clearing and walking through our clear and kind of doing a skeleton type clear. So that was usually what our as a goalie group, that's what it usually looked like for us.
Love it. Awesome. Talking about the mental game. I think you mentioned, you've learned a couple mental lessons along the way. We've hit on a few, next shot mentality. What else comes to mind? What else, if you're thinking about mental toughness, what comes to mind for you?
I mean, there's a lot. I think kind of the things we already touched on or the most talked about is that next shot mentality. I also think, you just got to be, I don't know if it's in the mental category, but just being able to have positive, I guess it is probably mental, but positive body language is very important.
Mm-hmm.
That, when you get scored on, every single person on the field is literally looking at you because they just look at the ball that went in the net. And if you're, hanging your head and the other thing too, is that if you're pointing at other people, like, what did you just messed up? That's, it's thumbs, not, pointing. If you're ever going to point, it's at yourself saying that's my bad. I got the next one for you guys. And that's very important at this level because if you're the goalie, you're kind of the Energizer bunny for the defense. And if you're not doing your job as far as making sure that everybody's staying upbeat, then that's how 3, 4, 5 goal runs get put in on you and you get put in a bit of a hole.
Yeah. Body language is so important. The palms up is kind of like another one,
Definitely.
that's just like, I hate seeing that. Cause you're blaming others. I was going to say, that, yeah, body language is so important that I think young goalies, I encourage them to practice it, picking the ball out of the cage and like flicking it up and then throwing it to the ref in a real confident manner, so that when you have to do that in a game, it's not like, and then you go get the ball and then you pick it out, you look cool and you stay in the flow, or practice stepping up and be like, guys, that one's on me. And that gesture of hitting your chest pad when you let in a soft one, because that's going to happen, right? So practice it.
Completely agree. It's sometimes you got to be very very intentional about it, I guess is the right word.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're about to hang your head and you realize, wait, can't be doing that, and kind of just sometimes you got to, I don't want to say fake it because you're not faking it, but sometimes you got to remind yourself that this is how you have to be.
Yeah. It's not faking. It's kind of like if you're slouching, you're just kind of reminding yourself to to sit up. You know what I mean? You're not faking it. That's good posture, right? You're just reminding yourself to sit up.
Yeah.
As I should be doing right now. There you go. Awesome. Cool. There was one question I wrote down, kind of going all the way back to technique, if we could. So the wide base stance, right? I'm in my stance, I'm not shoulder width. I'm a little bit wider than shoulder width, but like the first, you got your lead step and then you've got your trail step and you kind of like recover, like kind of like the secondary step. Do you
Yeah.
do that with the wide base stance, or are you just kind of like, is it just
Yeah.
one step?
I'm very unconventional in that sense. One thing, so we were talking about taking certain things away from certain people. One thing I noticed in Kincannon's game is that he just explodes up and kind of as he's exploding upwards, if it's a high shot, obviously, just kind of punches his hands there. And if you, I can't really think of a lot of times where I took a step, recovered, gather step. And that's a combination of just me being unconventional by nature, by stance, and also kind of intentionally just relying on my hands. I feel like my best attribute in my game is having very quick hands. So to be honest, I really didn't do a lot of stepping, I would say. It's definitely not a gather step because that's more so because of the speed of the shot.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't have the time to do that. Um, but I'd say I was more so just get your hands there. I think I really am intentional about just driving my hands there, and whatever body movements I do in order to get my hands there is whatever I do. I don't know if that
Interesting.
is or not.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was looking for. What about the quick hands? Is that something that's natural? Are there specific like drills that you do to get those hands quick?
Um, when I was like really younger, I used the weighted stick, the weighted shaft. I forget the
Yeah,
exact. It's like orange.
I think it's called a power shaft.
Yeah, power shaft. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, so I would use that when I was younger. I haven't used that in a while. I would say I just see a lot of shots, and the thing is, when you see a lot of shots from guys, there's no defenders around, and they're ripping it from 12, 13, which for some guys may sound like it's really deep, but when you're at the collegiate level, 12 or 13, hands free with no defenders in sight is pretty close. So it's kind of just like self-preservation. If you don't get your hands there, you're going to be in a lot of pain. So I think that's I guess what I would attribute my hand speed to is just seeing a lot of shots from fast shooters, and it's if I don't get my hands there, then it's gonna hurt or it's gonna go in. So
Yeah.
I'd say that.
Awesome. Well, Liam, thank you so much for dropping all those bombs of information. That was awesome. So much fun. Good luck this year. I guess you're kind of we're in the summer now, so you'll head back for fall ball. And when do you guys start? August, September?
Yeah, late August is when we
Late
head back.
August. Awesome. And then yeah, I'll be watching. If people want to get a hold of you or ask you a question, do you is there a place they should go?
Yeah, I guess my Instagram probably is the best option. It's not my name. It's like my nickname on the team is Enti because it's like my last name. So it's Entigram. It's ENTEEGRAM. So yeah, it's got to remember the second E at the end there. So that's probably the best way. I mean, I try to respond. I respond to everyone if they have a question for me about anything, and I'm always looking to help younger goalies if that's if they need somebody to talk to about the mental game or recruiting or really anything. I've always admired the people that have been able to help me, and I always would look to do the same for anyone else. So I'd say that's probably the best spot.
Awesome. Well, I'll link up to that when this comes out. If you had to leave the goalies out there with a final piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say I say this to a lot of younger guys: just never give up. And the other thing too is that you got to surround yourself with people that genuinely care about you, whether you're a starting goalie for a college team or you're a young goalie trying to make a club team. And I'd say for me, that's my mom and dad, and my extended family and and my close friends. So if you surround people that love you for who you are and not maybe what you do, that support's never going to waver because it's the person that they're supporting, not the player or the whatever you want, the whatever that it is. But I would say just embrace your family and never stop trying.
Love it. NT, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.